All right, so this morning when I was driving to work, I got really discouraged. It's Monday morning, and the wage cage is waiting for you at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you don't want to go. Every bone in your body is fighting you against going into the McJob. Because as I've said 1,000 times, every job is McDonald's today. The pay, the benefits, the attitude towards the workers. I mean, this afternoon I got a call from a woman who decided that Evil Corp wasn't for her anymore. And she started breaking down on the phone with me as she told me that they are asking way too much for too little pay. And I told her at McDonald's, that's just the way it is. When you work at McDonald's and you're working with food and people, the pay is never going to be enough. So, well before that happened, I asked ChatGPT this, wondering why poor people stay poor. Why is it that 99% can't simply build wealth like we're expected to do? Why are there so many poor people that can't help themselves? So, a lot of BS later and a lot of back and forth because it says, "Oh, there's always a potential for hope." And I said, "No, there isn't. You don't understand how hard it is to work so many hours and have nothing." And it came back with this stupid answer. I guess what I mean by hope is that even small steps, like finding free resources and community support, can sometimes help, even if it feels like it's just a tiny bit. But I definitely understand the frustration, and it's okay to acknowledge that reality. It kept coming back at me with these stupid possibilities for fixing the things that are wrong in our society. Like, why don't you get some skills and some certifications? And why don't you try this? And I'm like, Chat GPT, I have no money and I have no free time. When do you expect ordinary people to find time to study for, let's say, a security cert or a network cert or a server, some sort of Microsoft certifications? The problem with that is that there's already a saturated market. There's no way that you, with your brand new certification, is going to beat out someone with 5 to 10 years of experience for the same job. They will never hire you. That's what people don't get into their stupid brains, is the system is so rigged against you that you can't win. When people come out of trade schools, they go right into minimum wage jobs if they can even get that job. Even in a trade, they want you to have 3 to 5 years, and the only way to get that is to work for minimum wage or for free as an intern. Who can afford to work for free in today's job market? I don't know a single person. Or even worse, where they ask you to come work for 6 weeks and see if they try you out, like a subscription service that you're not quite sure. You just want a free trial period while that person is sleeping in their car or worse. So that's the context of this video, is my back and forth arguments with a machine that doesn't think that hope is gone for the average person. So the title it gave me is "Hope is a Scam They Sell the Working Class." They keep telling us to stay hopeful, that if we just work a little harder, smile a little wider, and manifest abundance, we'll finally escape the grind. But let's be honest, hope isn't a strategy, it's a sedative. The truth is, the system was built to keep the working class spinning in circles while billionaires float above the mess. This video isn't here to sprinkle glitter on a landfill. It's here to burn the brochure they sold us about success. Well, I like that enthusiasm there, but I came back at ChatGPT really hard, and she just kept saying, "You got to stay hopeful." Well, if you were a billionaire and all of your workers were starting to notice that they kept getting poorer and poorer and poorer, and you just kept getting richer and richer, but they kept telling you trickle down economics. Eventually, all your hard work is going to come back to make you rich too. The reality is that's not true. The hardest working people in our society are often the least paid people. The people who work the least, and I'm talking about physical work here because they will tell you how hard it is to be an executive all day long. In fact, today I was reading an article about a woman who's making like $400,000 working as in the education system as some sort of administrator. And I'm like, $400,000? And she was so scared about someone hurting her that she hired a security guy as full-time security for herself for $125,000 a year. I mean, rich people really don't live in reality. They're completely out of touch with the average man. I work with people who make just above the minimum wage every single day. At the MIC job, everyone can make nothing. And that means you and me. Have you ever sat at a minimum wage job and wondered how long you could possibly do this? This is the expression that I see every time I walk into the Kroger's and I see the girl at the Starbucks just looking out into space like her brain has just there's nothing inside of her skull. It's just the outline of a human being. And guess what? Walk up to that human being and try to have a conversation with them. It's an NPC. Our society has turned us all into workers at the MIC job and NPCs. We don't talk to each other anymore. Why would we? What could talking to an NPC really lead to? Most of our conversations are shallow and not worth having. Coworkers, friends, family, anyone you interact with, pretty much it's a waste of time to talk to them. I've come to that conclusion because sometimes when you're working at McDonald's, you don't really know what to say. Sometimes you just want to nod your head or shake your head or just not pay attention. I've noticed that more and more people. Yesterday, in my all-day travels, from one location to the next, to the next, to the next. I mean, my whole weekend was just one long hanging out section with a bunch of people. And so I don't really have time for doing this channel on the weekends anymore. And I know you guys don't like that, but unfortunately, that's the way it is. Sometimes you have a lot of free time, and then you have a whole weekend of socializing with this girl, this girl, this girl, and unfortunately, that leaves zero time for the channel. And I mean, the channel's making the least amount of money that it's ever made, so it's not that big of a deal. Anyhow, let's get into talking point number one. The system doesn't want you empowered, it wants you pacified. Hope is sold to the working class as motivation, but it's actually a sedation. They don't hand you opportunities, they hand you a Pinterest quotes and tell you to hustle harder while billionaires inherit empires. Today, while I was filling up my fountain drink, I was getting a Coke from Quick Trip. And 2 feet away from me, there was a broke ass prole. And guess what guess what he was doing? Do you ever wonder why proles buy scratcher tickets? This guy was putting, I don't know how many $20 bills into this machine. I could clearly see it because I could just look over because he was right next to me and see how much money he was putting into that damn machine. And then at the end, it kept his money. So he was banging on the machine because he didn't get his scratcher tickets. Like, whatever was going to come out of that machine was the only hope he had at either paying his bills that week, or he's about to get his car repossessed, or his house, what do you call that? Oh my gosh, I can't even think of the word. He's going to have his house foreclosured on. Like, that machine was giving him the only hope, probably his last few bucks. But this is how we live in a society where there is no hope. Going to your job, going to your hourly job is never going to make your life better. That's why I say that we all work at McDonald's. I don't work at McDonald's. You work at McDonald's. And no matter what company I go to, it's McDonald's. Because that's the way our society is set up. You're never supposed to win by climbing into the wage cage. The wage cage has you running in place until you slow down a little bit. And then the trap door underneath is removed or is opened up, and then you fall into homelessness. That's how this world works. You're never supposed to win, but you're always supposed to stay scared, angry, depressed. All the negative emotions you have towards McDonald's is the emotions you're supposed to have. McDonald's doesn't want you getting angry and thinking about things like unions or hell, even someone in my live stream this week said, you know, millennials team, you're the preacher that the poor need. You need to hold a revival for the proletariat. A revival, people? Do you really need to hear me give you a sermon on how screwed you are by not being rich? Some of you do feel that way. Talking point number 2. They say you can make it if you just work hard, but the elevator to success has been out of order since 1982. Most people aren't climbing. They're drowning in student loan debt, inflation, burnout while being told to smile more and start a side hustle. You know, every time I think about this, every time I think about the 80s or the movie The Never-Ending Story, which I didn't know there were 3 never-ending stories until Mello told me yesterday, it reminds me of that series on Netflix. What's it called? I am completely cooked today. This is why I don't like working after work. It's just work destroys you. All work does all day is kick you in the balls. And then you come home and you're supposed to somehow relax. But I don't have time. You know, you guys are always telling me, it's like, you got to make time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my neighbors have friends over. That's weird. I've never seen them bring people to their house. Maybe they're into that stuff, into the menage a trois kind of stuff. Anyhow, Stranger Things. In that movie, they depict a person who can work in a store, right? At a Radio Shack, own a car, own a house, own things. And someone was telling me the other day, one of my coworkers, I was talking to my coworkers, an older guy who was, you know, in his prime in the 80s, and he said, you know what? In the 80s, if you didn't want to work full time, you could work part time, still have a car, still pay $200 in rent, and be able to use the other 20 hours of working to pursue whatever you wanted to do. It wasn't this hard. And I have to believe that because in the 80s, my parents, with no education, unable to speak the language, hillbillies to the nth degree, right? Completely inbred hillbillies, had a house, had a car, and my mom scrubbed toilets. How hard have they made it in today's present day and time that you could be a highly educated college person like myself and still be working in a dump, still be working at McDonald's, still be working at Amazon or Taco Bell or the car wash? Not only are you doing that, but you're also doing a delivery service. You also have a night shift. You're working so much to have nothing when we know that people used to work a lot less because they didn't have to kill themselves for work. Work wasn't this thing that grinded you into pieces and then fired you because you got burnt out, because you can no longer keep it together, because showing up at work was something you couldn't do anymore. You can't take the car battery to your boys every single day to increase your productivity. Eventually, they're going to have to attach 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 car batteries to your junk to get you motivated, to make you do the job of 5 different people. Today, while I was at McDonald's, I literally was hopping from the fry-later to the register to cleaning up things people purposely threw on the floor because there was no one else. And that's the mentality you have to have in the current workplace. And then you look over at your greasy coworker and his goofy hat, and you think to yourself, I can't look that bad in this uniform. And the reality is that more and more attractive people, and this is something I heard yesterday, when more attractive people start working minimum wage jobs, that is the red flag that the economy is toast because pretty people don't work at minimum wage jobs. They usually have a friend, a family member, some sort of connection to keep them out of the bottom tier jobs where I work. Because if you're working fast food in your 30s, something went horribly wrong. And I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming this evil system. There's nowhere else to get another McJob. You can go on Indeed and scroll through the jobs all day long, and all there are on there is crap jobs or jobs that want a master's degree and 20 years of experience to make $16 an hour. That's not you. That's not me. And from what I can tell in the comments, all of you guys are having the same experience. You're not finding work, or you're having to enter a different industry altogether, like Astra. She was onboarding this week with her new finance job. She's a tech. She's worked in the tech industry her whole life. But after so many layoffs, she had to go look for work elsewhere. I know people that are actively looking for jobs in call centers because there's nothing else. But what are you supposed to do? You're never going to be happy with that mini paycheck. Your Mick paycheck and your Mick rental and your Mick car, when everything around you represents your own poverty, right down to the cockroaches you have to share your living space with, what are you supposed to do? There's nothing. You can scream into the heavens that you don't want to work 100 hours a week and still wonder if you're going to be able to make your basic obligations. The Epic Economist went off this morning on how the biggest source of debt for people that they're not paying is car payments. Because if you're like me, you owe way more money on your Promobile than it's worth. I've been underwater on my car loan now for years. Why? Because I bought it at a bad time at an interest rate that punishes you because I'm a poor person with bad credit. Because one simple reason, and this is something I've heard from every person that I work with, when you don't have money, it's harder to get credit. That's when they gouge you with those 30% credit cards or those 20% car loans because they can. Because they know as much as you don't want to pay, you also don't really want to ride the bus and show society how much of a total loser you are. And the impression, the giving off the illusion that you're not as poor as you think to other people is ingrained in us as human beings. We don't want to let other people see us cry. But I know that you go home and cry because I cry in the shower and drink beers all the time. It's kind of part of my daily ritual of dealing with this, with reality. All right, let's get into talking point number 3 before I run out of time here. The real threat to the system isn't losing hope. It's gaining clarity. When people stop blaming themselves and start blaming the structure, the illusion collapses. Then when solidarity, not toxic positivity, becomes the cure. Toxic positivity is the only way some people can live. When I'm sitting around at the gym wondering what to look at, because let's face it, there aren't that many hot chicks at my gym. And the ones that do show up in their half-naked workout outfits are like, oh, you better not be looking at me. In fact, I ran into that yesterday. She's just like, gave me the stink eye because she's like, oh, I just want to show up with pasties on at the gym, but I don't want anyone looking at me like I'm some sort of beep, beep. I mean, if you're going to show up with dental flossing between your butt cheeks and pasties covering up your upper chest, and then you wonder why all these single men are staring at you like hungry animals, do you blame the men? Because they're hungry. Believe me, at least half the men in that gym have to be single and desperate. That's where they go to hang out, ladies. If you want to know where the incels are, that's where the femcells are too. Anyhow, it just really pisses me off when you see women like that. They're just like, oh, I don't want any man looking at me. And you're like, don't go out naked if you don't want people looking at you. Simple Simple decisions. All right, let's go into the closing monologue here. If hope was all it took, I'd we'd all be rich by now. But in a system designed to exploit, not uplift, the only way out isn't blind faith. It's clarity, anger, collective action. So forget waiting for a miracle. Start recognizing the trap. Because the moment we stop hoping and start seeing, we stop playing their game. Jesus on the back of a unicorn riding over a rainbow isn't coming to save the proles from the misery of this economy. And someone asked me to do this. Have you guys ever looked at a job listing that pays $16 an hour, has a ridiculous amount of requirements, and then gone to set an interview, looked at the people, the hiring manager in that interview, and had to look at him and wonder, it's like, why does this job pay so little? And they will become offended. Every corporation out there becomes offended when you ask why you pay so little. And when they come back and they say, well, we're not interested in hiring anyone that needs money. We want someone that's going to work here because they enjoy working. And you may not believe this, but when I worked at Walmart, that was the whole idea. They wanted you to show up and work like the owner, but get paid like a slave. And if you didn't have that motivation, if they couldn't see that burning desire to work really hard for nothing, they weren't going to hire you. Or you were going to work one day and they were going to can you. Because that's the world we live in. It is very, very hard to find people that care anymore. I know I'm surrounded by people that don't care at McDonald's. I see it in their eyes. I hear it in their voices. I see it in the chat. Working at McDonald's will always be a bad job. And anyone that tells you that it's not is trying to blow smoke up there where fleece has been.